Okay, well, hello everyone, and welcome to our latest webinar, AIOps Success Spotlight with Cambia Healthcare. As we are waiting for the rest of our audience to join, I have a few housekeeping items. So first, our session is being recorded and you will receive a replay link following today's program. And it will also be available through the BigPanda website as well. And secondly, we want to hear from you. So please use the chat during today's session. It would be using the Q&A widget, and we will get to as many questions as possible throughout. Okay, well, to introduce myself, my name is Ellie Duggar. I am a product marketing manager at BigPanda, and I am excited to be joined by Mark Peterson, who is the IT operations supervisor at Cambia Health Solutions. Mark is joining us to share how his team achieved great success with AIOps, and a few highlights being an alert automation rate that averages 83%, a 95% average for SLAs met, and really incredibly, Cambia uses AIOps to speed up their incident detection by 20x. So that's from about 10 minutes down to 30 seconds for incident detection. But before we get into everything that Cambia is doing at present, Mark, hi. I
Hi.
want to turn it over to you. So if you can please take us back to a time before AIOps, can you expand on some of the challenges that your team, your IT ops team faced?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me. Just a quick about myself. I've been here at Cambia for almost 17 years now, and started in member customer service, and now I'm, as you said, a supervisor in IT operations, specifically over our knock and batch scheduling teams. So I'm excited to be here. Uh, yeah, so what some of the challenges that we faced before we had BigPanda and AIOps was we were using a homegrown tool that was kind of a Frankenstein put together with many, many different developers over many, many years who were no longer here anymore. And it was kind of, as we like to joke, held together by duct tape. And this tool did not have any sort of alert noise reduction. There was no deduplication, no correlations. Sometimes even the ups and downs didn't correlate together. So there's a lot of manual intervention that had to be done with that. And when we would get an outage, it would be hours worth of work to just clean up all of the alerts that came in, and a lot of manual intervention. And occasionally we would have outages where we would get so many alerts that came in, 1,000 or so alerts in a 2 to 3 minute window, and it would actually completely crash our web page. So our knock was completely blind. They had no idea what alerts were coming in, what was going down. So that would require a all hands on deck, just page everyone and everybody, and try and get everyone on looking at everything to see if they can figure out what's going on, rather than being able to pinpoint specifically what the problem was. And this would happen, quite frequently. So it was definitely a pain that we struggled with.
Yeah. And this is not a scenario that's isolated to Cambia, right? I mean, many IT ops and NOC teams can relate to this. So thank you for breaking that down, especially on the volume of alert noise and these redundant systems that really a lot of your team didn't want to touch because people have come and gone, and you don't know if you touch this or touch that, it's going to affect anything. So I'd really like to inquire about like how it was handled at this time. I mean, you had to do everything manually with all of these alerts coming in, particularly under the pressure of an outage. Can you explain how that manual process looked, especially for employees that were newer? I mean, how did that lack of tribal knowledge of what to do, and going deeper into having no event correlation and with no substantial payload data and really no automation capabilities, can you break those two down a little bit more and talk about how that affected your team?
Absolutely, yeah. So because our alerts weren't correlated and weren't connected with each other, sometimes the data that came in wasn't very useful. Didn't give us a whole lot of information around how to resolve it. We didn't know necessarily who should support it. We didn't know maybe if it was related to a network problem or a power problem, or if it was really an application problem. So it ended up causing a lot of work of getting everybody involved
Hmm.
and trying to determine what the actual problem was before we could actually move forward with fixing it. Um, and what that caused is, especially with like newer employees in our NOC, is that uh, they just didn't have that understanding of, oh, I recognize this alert is related to these things, and so I need to page these people and get these people involved, even though it doesn't clearly say that on the alert. And so there was a lot of that happened before, and that's where the tribal knowledge would just you'd understand, recognize certain characters or certain abbreviations or things like that were in our alert descriptions, and they could go, oh, that needs to go to this team.
Hmm.
And so new people, especially during an outage, we didn't have time to get them to work with them and explain to them all the little things that they had to know. So they a lot of times the new people would end up having to just kind of sit back and watch,
Yeah.
and the older guys would be able to come in and actually uh, pay attention to everything that's going on and go through everything, and then they'd have to kind of after the fact uh, try and explain what they did. And
Right.
there was like I said, no automation capability, so we didn't have any sort of automation of notifying people or anything like that, and it was 100% manual. Um, the knock basically that meant our knock staff touched every single alert that came in, whether it was important or not. And we'd get that during outages sometimes, where we'd get unimportant things that would come in and clutter things up that they had to sort through and figure out. So it caused delays for sure.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's interesting because it's not only just one person working on it and it's taking a lot longer than it should because you're doing it manually, but now you've got two people, one seasoned, one newer, or, whatever, however it shakes out working. But so now you've got double the amount of resources and people and then tons of time. And obviously that's not any way to be innovative with the company. So I could see that as being a big challenge for you. And I want to just double tap on the animation piece, automation piece, excuse me. Um, I mean, it sounds like your team was essentially plagued with manual efforts, and so can you share how this slowed your team down or prevented them from working on like more interesting and innovative projects by just hitting refresh and seeing what's going on manually?
Absolutely, yeah. So because everything had to be handled manually, um, it required someone to have to go in and determine whether we needed to notify somebody, determine whether it was really an issue or not. Um, and especially when like you said, during outages and things like that, it turned from handling a couple alerts that came in to 100 or 200 alerts came in that had to be manually looked at and manually diagnosed and escalated, which meant that sometimes an alert would come in and it may be 30 minutes before somebody actually gets
Mm.
notified that there's a problem because it took that long to get through everything. And and then again, after with cleanup and everything like that, all the manual efforts meant that we would be just basically constantly watching our dashboard for alerts that came in. And that was pretty much our entire function. That's all we really did.
Yeah.
Uh, so there was no time to think about trying to develop new capabilities or new avenues of trying to solve things. It was 100% focused on just reacting to what was coming in, and
Yeah.
it caused a lot of burnout for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned the 30 minutes, that it would take. And I think to put that in perspective, I think your average SLA during normal times was about 15 minutes or so. So
Correct.
to double that committed response time and have that SLA be 30 minutes is a big deal. And I think it's so valuable for us to talk about those challenges. And that specifically is great from a very zoomed in perspective, understand the immediate impact on your direct team. So thank you for that. But I also think it'd be worth discussing this from a broader and more real life point of view, because when your SLA is double the time, going to 30 minutes, I mean, Cambia is in the healthcare industry, right? So can you talk to us about why those challenges matter, or rather, why are they all the more important to overcome in the healthcare industry specifically?
Yeah, so you know, working in IT, sometimes it's very easy to get blinders on, right?
Yeah.
And you, when you're dealing with alerts and things like that, it's very much, oh, it's this server that's down, it's this network problem, it's whatever, and you're thinking from a technical perspective. But a big focus for our team is to remember that we are a healthcare company, not a technology company, right? So
Mhm.
all of the things that we're dealing with technology wise are in support of our members. That when we have outages, when we have things go down, it impacts the time to process medical claims. It impacts like pre-approvals for medical procedures or pharmacy pickups. One of the things that kind of came up recently is we have an outage. Can a member go and pick up a prescription from the store? Because if the pharmacy can't get information from the insurance on what it's going to cost and all that kind of stuff, that may prevent them from getting their medication that they need. So we make it a big point for us to remember that that is our focus, is what is the people impact, not the technology impact, but what is the people impact of these things going down and the delays and all of that kind of stuff. So it's really important for us to be as efficient as possible with resolving these situations when they come up.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm really glad your team takes that perspective. I'm sure the patients at Cambia are very happy with that too. Very meaningful. So, again, I think that the challenges were really clear in the pre AIOps world. You had high alert volume, consistent outages, no correlation, no automation, and then, of course, the real world consequences for patients. So let's shift now. Tell me about your experience with AIOps. How has it been a solution for you, and how has it overcome those challenges we spoke of?
Yeah, it's been really fun challenge to implement that into our environment. So um, a lot of the things that we've done with BigPanda is allowing us to uh, deduplicate alerts, allowing us to correlate things that may be related to each other. It's limited the amount of noise being sent to our second and third level support teams who actually have to fix the problems, so that they're not getting constantly bombarded with notifications about stuff, because we are able to reduce that noise a lot, and it helps to make it more manageable so you don't feel overwhelmed. Our knock staff doesn't feel overwhelmed when we get alerts come in from an outage. We're not getting 1,000, we're getting 25, 50,
Yeah,
whatever. And it's
yeah,
much more manageable to handle, and you don't get overwhelmed. And then on top of that, one of the big things, and this is a big thing that we've recently been able to implement, is improving our enrichment on the data that comes in for these alerts. So BigPanda has allowed us to get much more detailed enrichment into our alerts, and correlating those alerts with configuration items from our CMDB so that we can understand what is actually being impacted, not just, hey, this web service is down. It's, oh, that web service impacts this application,
mm,
and this application is being used by this team. So we can understand what the actual impact of the alerts is, and help us to drive prioritization and escalation patterns, and uh, you know speed up resolution, and get all that handled quickly.
yeah. Mark, I wanna pause on there because we have a question that's coming from the chat that I think relates really well to this about alert quality. So, how are you now prioritizing or identifying which alerts are actionable?
So that's coming from our enrichment from our CMDB. So, like I said, when every alert that comes into BigPanda right now is being related to a configuration item in our CMDB. And so what that is doing is it's telling us exactly what is actually being impacted by this, so we can have a better understanding of what applications, what users are impacted, uh, how much the business is going to be impacted by this, how many users are going to be sitting there twiddling their thumbs, not doing anything. And so based on that, we can then automate our escalation patterns to get the appropriate teams involved in a much quicker manner.
Gotcha. Okay, great. Yeah. And so I think that pretty much captured what you're talking about with new automation. Is there anything else you want to add on the workflow automation piece that we haven't already covered?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. So moving on, we have a slide up here next that has some pretty impressive results. So if we can just go to the next slide, I'd love to dive a little bit deeper into each of these outcomes with AIOps implementation. There we go.
Yeah, sure, of course. Like it says up there, 83% alert automation. So before BigPanda, we were at 0% automation on our
Mm.
alerts, and at this point in time now, we are up to about 83% of our alerts are automatically handled.
Wow.
Um, so that means our knock does not have to get involved in any way, shape, or form. Really, it's just the alert comes in, it gets sent off, creates a ticket, notifies the team that needs to work on it, and they can get working on it within seconds, as opposed to 10 plus minutes of someone trying to figure out what's going on. And a lot of that has become from our CMDB enrichment and all of that kind of stuff that just didn't exist before. And so it's allowed us to get a much quicker response and a much better understanding of what's being impacted, and it's allowed our NOC staff to shift their focus um, to different things, and be able to work more on improving processes and improving relationships with our other teams, and being able to assist them with other things rather than focusing solely on reacting to alerts coming in. On there says the 91% SLA met. So before we have our 15-minute SLA that we have for critical outage relating incidents, which could potentially have taken up to 30 minutes before during an outage. It's now down to seconds. And so what that's done is that's allowed our NOC staff to shift their focus. So in the past, focusing on meeting SLA and handling alerts was 90 to 95% of our efforts.
Mm.
Now it's about 10% of the efforts of our NOC. And they completely are able to shift their focus to other projects and other things that are more intriguing for them and more beneficial for the company, for sure.
Yeah, and I really want to make sure that the audience capture that and really internalizes it, because sometimes we look at outcomes and you say, okay, 83% automation, like, well, compared to what, like 91, well, compared to what? So you had really significant outcomes, because you were saying it was from 0% alert automation to 83%. Obviously the bulk of your alerts are now automated. That's huge. And we talked about the detection time, the mean time to detect, and how 20x in real terms is from 10 minutes to 30 seconds. That's a significant. I mean, now you're looking at 9 minutes and 30 seconds back to your team. And with thousands of alerts that were coming in during outages, how does that multiply? That's a huge, significant amount of time that your team has back that they can now use on innovative projects, instead of just hitting refresh or bringing on multiple people to the team to address one incident. That's huge. And you're saying that because you're able to meet those demands, that means that instead of 90% of your efforts going into it, now it's only 10. Again, bringing time back to your team. So I think that's great. And I just really wanted to make sure that I double tapped on that, because it's really significant and it's awesome news for your team. And it shows how much reward you guys are getting back, and that ROI for your team, which is great. I want to stop and bring up another question from the chat here. So you mentioned challenges with tribal knowledge at the beginning of this session. How has BigPanda and AIOps removed the dependency on tribal knowledge for your team?
Yeah, so in the past, it was very important for our NOC to just understand this type of alert is going to be supported by this team, and they had to kind of better understand all the different teams and what they supported, and it was sometimes really hard to keep up, and it was one of those things that you just kind of learned as you went through everything, and it wasn't something you could teach really easily, and it took time. And so in the past, when we had a new person come on to our NOC staff, it was I mean, it could be up to 6 months before they're really able to be left alone because it just took so much time to learn that tribal knowledge and get that understanding. Now, because of the enrichment data that we have going into these alerts, that knowledge isn't necessary. Uh, the alert has the information that is needed to determine who it is that needs to be contacted. So that they don't require as much hand holding. They don't require as much uh, you know guidance, and they can. It's more of just teaching the functions, and
Mm.
that's a lot quicker to pick up for sure than the tribal knowledge. And one of the big things that we've gotten from our CMDB enrichment is rather than in the past our NOC staff would be responsible for manually telling the ticketing system or the paging system who needs to get this information, and they would have to select the team and do all of that manually. Now, because we have the CMDB enrichment, we have the information as to what's impacted. What we can do then is instead we have BigPanda just send that information across to our ticketing system or our paging system and say, hey, FYI, this is what's being impacted by this alert. And that tool then can go, oh, okay, I know who supports that. And it automatically assigns it. It automatically pages the people that need to be paged. And what that does is when we have shifts in our teams and you know different teams will support different applications, things move around as we all know. Uh, Rather than us just having to keep track of all that and know it, the systems already know that. And so we're letting the computers basically determine, oh yeah, I know it's impacted. I know this team supports it. So that's really improved that process a lot and given
Uh,
teams ownership of that.
yeah, yeah, and Mark, you mentioned that prior, with all these manual efforts and having to basically train them manually to for them to get their own tribal knowledge version of it, was about 6 months. What would you say it is now, give or take?
Honestly, now we could probably, when we get a new person in, we can probably have them on their own within a month, maybe 2 months.
Wow. I again, that's really great. So it's amazing what, it enables these new team members to basically walk and run very quickly because all the information's just right there at their fingertips instead of it having to be something that's stored in their brain,
Absolutely.
like season in play. Cool. Well, great. Thanks for sharing all of that, Mark. I mean, it's a really powerful testimony to the time and resources that your team is now able to reinvest, once AIOps was implemented. Um, so another popular question that has been coming up has been around, well, what now? What now? Can you tell us where do you want to go from here? What are the next steps to AI ops and how do you plan to get here? And really, I think that's a great segue for this next slide. So let's just get into these three pillars, starting with alert standardization, and just talk about what's next for you guys.
Sure. So obviously we've done a lot of work already with our standardization,
Hmm.
but that is an ongoing effort. It's never going to stop. So it's always going to be a focus for us is to making sure that we are standardizing and enriching our alerts with valuable information. Um, and that's allowing us to work with key shareholders across the organization to to collect the technical and business information and get that into the enrichment and make sure that the teams who are getting these alerts have the information from them as what they need to actually complete the work that they're doing. So that is a huge effort, and it's an ongoing effort that's always going to be there.
Yeah, and it really, I imagine, helps break down silos and, contributes to cross-team communication because it's not kind of every team on an island by themselves. You're able to standardize that across the board so you're all speaking the same language and aware of what's going on,
Absolutely.
across the org. Great. Yeah, so I wanted to touch on the second piece, real-time root cause, because you may and the audience may be aware there's a Gartner statistic out there that says approximately 85% of performance impacting incidents are a result of change alerts, which due to infrastructure and software changes. So I just want to confirm that fact with Cambia as an example. I mean, do you find that statistic to ring true for Cambia? Are changes a primary? I mean, 85%, are they the bulk of what you guys are dealing with?
Well, I don't know about 85% because I don't have the numbers on it, but I will say they are definitely one of the biggest generators of unnecessary noise, unnecessary alerts. Um, the a lot of times teams are doing their changes and the information isn't passed along to all the people who need to know it, and so it definitely causes a lot of noise and unnecessary uh, notifications to be sent out and all that fun stuff. So it's definitely something that we're looking to try and resolve with implementing the root cause change tools that BigPanda has, um, and trying to use that information and use that change data to help us to better reply to alerts that come in and better uh, understand what is actually causing those things. So that is definitely a huge thing that we're looking to do, as well as looking to further automation around maintenance plans and things like that with our change system,
Mhm.
um, which is being utilized or which is allowed through AIOps and BigPanda. So
Yeah, that's
we're
good. Yeah, because I know, I mean, I think a lot of teams do, root cause analysis post-mortem, after the fact, diving into it. So it's going to be exciting to continue to work with Cambia and start doing more real-time root cause analysis and looking at how change data is affecting incidents as they happen, in real time. So that's exciting. And let's lastly here, talk about unified analytics. What are you excited about moving forward with that?
Yeah, unified analytics is honestly we're just diving into that, and it's really cool. Having the ability to kind of generate our own reporting and generate our own dashboards and things like that that um, can give us the data and insight into the data that we need as to how our systems are being maintained, and yeah, especially from an executive review perspective. As we all know, executives love reports. So the more we can build them and the more we can give useful data in those reports, um, is and being able to adjust it ourselves rather than having to you know wait for other people, for you guys to be able to have time to do it, or understand, make you guys understand what we really need. We know what we need, so we can build it with unified analytics, and that's really exciting.
Yeah, well, that's great. I'm excited. I mean, it's been great hearing everything that you've done so far, and it's going to be great to continue this partnership and just see you guys just continue to soar with AI ops. I mean, so thank you so much to Mark for sharing his experience with AI ops and Big Panda. And it's truly a great testimony. It's a testimony of what's realistic and what's possible, with AI ops. But hey, it's not just Cambia that is improving its efficiency with AI ops. Many customers, many companies across diverse industries are drastically reducing their MTTR, increasing their service uptime, and cutting ticket volume with us. But of course, I don't want you to just take our word for it. So I invite you to check out their individual testimonies on Big Panda's customer page. You can see the link there and just, explore it for yourself, explore their stories. And I also wanted to point out that analysts such as Gartner and Forrester are talking about us in AIOps too. Again, not asking you to take our word for it. We have more details on what analysts are saying about us on our blog page, and you can also see them linked within this webinar to read for yourself. And finally, if you're interested in starting or even just improving your journey with AIOps, I encourage you to reach out to us, reach out for a demo. We'd be happy to hear from you. And so, in closing, thank you again to Mark. You and your team at Cambia are definitely ahead of the curve when it comes to AI ops. And we really, again, appreciate you sharing your story and insights with us. And to our audience, I want to thank you for everyone who joined us today. I trust it was informative, and we were able to cover some of the questions during today's talk, but it looks like we're just about at time here. So if you have any additional questions, we can reach out with some answers or, collaborate with you and discuss further. So I invite you to reach out to us. But with that, I want to thank everyone here, and we appreciate you joining us, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you.